Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us. My name is Jessica, and on behalf of the Office of Alumni Engagement, I'd like to welcome you to our talk, Designing Your Home in 2024. Before I introduce our guest speaker, I'd like to take the opportunity to acknowledge that the land on which this webinar is taking place at McMaster University is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe nations. The territory was subject to the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy and the Ojibwe and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. Our talk today is the final talk in our Rejuvenate series, which is being sponsored by our affinity partner, TD Insurance. So I'd like to thank them for their commitment to our programming. Just a reminder, for every Rejuvenate webinar you attend, you'll be entered into a random draw for a chance to win one of 3 gift cards for MEC, Terra Greenhouses, or Lee Valley. Winners will be contacted the week of May 6th. This talk is being recorded, and you will receive a link with an email that will be sent out later this afternoon. Feel free to share this talk with friends and family. That email contains a quick survey that will help us understand how you enjoyed this presentation. I'd like to thank everyone who pre-submitted a question during the registration process. If you have a question for our speaker during the presentation, please use the question button below to type it in. We will have some time at the end of the formal presentation to answer a few. It is now my pleasure to introduce our speaker. McMaster Alumna Kirsten Hess is the principal designer behind HvK Interiors, founded in 2019. She holds a BA in Communication Studies from McMaster University and a diploma in Interior Design from the Academy of Design. She lives in Hamilton with her husband and 2 young sons and works from her design studio to bring the HvK aesthetic to clients throughout the GTA. Without further delay, please welcome Kirsten as she discusses designing our homes in 2024. Over to you, Kirsten.
Thanks so much, Jessica, and thank you everyone for joining me this afternoon. So I'm excited to talk to you about all things design, and what a great time. Spring has sprung, and I'm sure that you all are thinking about your new spaces and how you can update things. So I'm just gonna jump right into my presentation. Let me just pull up that screen one moment. Okay. So today what we're going to be talking about, I'm going to do a quick little intro. We already got a little intro about who I am, but I'll just go over that again quickly. Then we'll talk about the design trends. So what is popular for 2024? Then I'm going to talk about what it's like to work with a designer. Then I'll be showing you some samples of my work. And then at the end, we'll do a little Q&A where you can kind of pick my brain about all things interior design, any questions you might have. Okay, so as was already mentioned, I started off at McMaster University. I did a communications degree. And then after that, because it was such a multidisciplinary studies, I didn't feel like it was leading me towards a specific career. So I kind of pivoted a little bit. I ended up moving to Toronto and went to the Academy of Design, where I studied interior design. And upon graduating, my plan was sort of thinking, okay, how can I bridge the gap between these 2 studies that I've done? And with communication studies, I was having a background and learning about a lot about brand identities and how that was going to be communicated. So how are companies talking about their brand and letting their audience know about their company through print media, through radio, television, even theater and dance? And so my thinking was, okay, how can I approach this whole brand identity question through the built environment? So I had my sights set on commercial design and thinking about how can I help create a space, so in this case, storefronts, that are going to communicate a company's brand to their target audience. So when I graduated, I actually did end up going into commercial design and worked for a firm out in Toronto where I got to work on some really amazing big brands like Second Cup and helping do some drawings for Cineplex when they were rolling out their Ultra AVX theaters. And so that was really exciting. With that being said, I did end up shifting my career a little bit and ended up in where I am now in residential design because, at the time that just happened to be where the opportunities were. And I ended up really loving it. Originally, when I had my sights set on commercial design, I was a little bit worried that residential design might feel a little too personal, but that actually ended up being why I loved it so much. So I worked for a few firms in Toronto, in the Toronto area, and then I ended up working for a small firm in the Port Credit area of Mississauga, which was such a great learning experience because I was working for a lady who was running her own small business. She had a young family, and I really got a window into what that might look like. So fast forward to 2018, I had my first son. And after the maternity leave, I was kind of feeling like, you know what, I'm really yearning to have a bit more flexibility and freedom in my job. So that kind of presented itself as the perfect time to take that leap and branch out and create my own interior design firm. So that's kind of where HvK Interiors sprung out of. I'm living and working in Hamilton now and, servicing the GTA, but definitely looking to expand my clientele more in like the Hamilton and Castor area rather than, still going out to the Mississauga area. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. Now I'd love to dive into what you guys are all here for, which is design inspo. So before we start talking about what are the trends, I kind of wanted to talk about, well, what is a trend? So this little graphic that I have here is specifically talking about fashion, but it's the same thing in interior design as it is for fashion. So when we have a trend that is introduced, so something that is popular, it starts off with the introduction through, in this case, it says fashion leaders, but interior design leaders. So who might that be? That might be influencers online. That might be from magazines, right? This might be from all of the television shows that are popular, right? And so they're introducing this trend item of saying, well, this is something really cool that that you all should try. So then it's getting more and more popular, more and more people are trying. Then we're in the growth of public acceptance, right? So this is when people who I would say are the early adopters, the people who are really in the know, start trying out this trend. So maybe there are people like me who are design professionals. Maybe there are people who are, really in the know and cool. Maybe it's like a trendy downtown couple, somebody who lives in New York, right? They really have their finger on the pulse of what's cool, right? So then this trend is getting more and more visibility. It's showing up in more and more stores until we reach the very peak, which this says mass conformity or maturation, but I'd like to say saturation, right? So when we're at the very peak of a trend, it's everywhere. Everybody's doing it. You're seeing it in everybody's home. You're seeing it in all the stores. And this is where you also kind of get like that trickle down, right? That it's not just in the really fancy design stores, you're seeing it everywhere. So once you start seeing a trendy item in, say, like IKEA or Bouclair, or even in like Home Depot, that's when you know this trend has reached its full saturation. And what happens once it's reached this full saturation? Well, that's when it starts to go down, unfortunately. People get tired of seeing the same thing over and over again, but also you know, it's a business, it's a system, right? So the powers that be start saying, well, now we have to introduce something else for people to buy and for people to get excited about. So now we're going to go back to the start and reintroduce something else that people are going to be looking at. So if this trend is starting to feel a little bit dated, then, you know, slowly we're going to see it fading until we don't see it anymore, right? And then I thought this line here of vintage was kind of funny because, you know, usually these trends will fall out of favor and we don't really see them for about 20 years is the cycle. And then it's cool and vintage. And then we start seeing it, the trend readopted and maybe reinterpreted a little bit. But then that's when it will come back. And that's your trend cycle. So what's an example of something that was really popular that we don't see anymore? Well, what does anybody remember the sponge painting of walls? That was super popular in the 90s, something that we don't see anymore, but this was something that was quite popular. A more recent example would be, I would say, like industrial chic. So does anybody remember when it seemed like every single restaurant had these Edison bulbs in their space? And now I think it's fading now. We're not really seeing this look as much anymore. And, you know, probably in a few more years, we can probably say, oh, that look was so 2015, right? And then it'll come back again in 20 years. Okay, so now that we understand what happens with the trend cycle, let's look at what's popular for right now in 2024. Colors. So maybe some of you have heard of the company Pantone. They're a very popular color company and they put out a color of the year every year. This year it's called Peach Fuzz. So this is very, you know, light, happy color. And then Benjamin Moore, of course, is one of the forefront paint color companies. This I grabbed off their website of, these are kind of their color recommendations for this year. You can see that it's really warm colors are quite present this year. We've also, I would say it's also earthy colors, right? So this one is pretty similar to Pantone's Peach Fuzz, but we're looking at, you know, clay or terracotta. Down here, we've got the olive green colors, things that are on the warmer side, because probably for the past 15 years, you know, we've seen a lot of grays and blues. Blue's not going anywhere, as you can see down here, but it sort of changes every year. But I would say in the past 15 years, it's been very slanted towards cool tones. So now even when you're going to be using grays, they're going to have a much warmer undertone. And this is going to show, I'm just going to show you some photos incorporating these sort of warm tones. So look at the carpet there. We've got all those colors that we just talked about. We've got the pinky clays. We've got the oranges, the burnt oranges, the terracottas, the olive greens, all working there. Okay. Something else I wanted to talk about is called the unexpected red theory. This is something that's been trending on Instagram. So I don't know if anyone has seen this, but this is the theory that you can take any space, and if you're putting just a little hit of red into that space, it's instantly going to make your space feel more interesting. Now, I think there's a lot of science behind this because red is a color that is extremely eye-catching for us, right? There's a reason that stop signs are red, right? There's a reason that in the movies, the blonde bombshell is always wearing the red dress. It's because it's very eye-catching for us. So I do think that's true, that if you have a space and you're putting just a little hint of red, it's going to add so much visual interest to your space. Another thing that is behind this is, as we just talked about, we've really been leaning in the past towards very neutral, very monochromatic, very gray tones. And so red is having a new moment, right? We haven't seen red be popular for quite some time. So here's some examples of that little pop of red. And it really is eye-catching. And then last thing that I want to touch on about color is not about a specific color. This is more about a technique called color drenching, which is becoming more popular. And that's where you're essentially drenching your space in one particular color. So you're painting the walls, the baseboards, the trim, the casings, the ceiling, the doors, all in the same color. And I love doing this in a powder room. I think it's very, really gives a dramatic look. Very cozy feeling as well, especially like in this photo, like if you're gonna do that in a dining room or a living room, very cozy. Okay, floors. So for the past few years, we've seen a lot of this look here, right? Of doing the very light white oak floors, which is beautiful. And I think it's still going strong. But I do want to bring to your attention that we're moving towards this. We're going back to the dark floors. So when I first saw this, I was a little nervous because, you know, if we think about our trend cycle again, I thought, oh, geez, dark floors, this makes me think about the early 2000s. But of course, when things come back, they get changed a little bit, right? So in the early 2000s, when we were doing the dark floors, there was a lot of it had, you know, what am I trying to say? Like very warm, almost like cherry undertones and super, super lacquered, like very shiny floors. So this time it's a little bit different because the wood floors that we're looking at are having a little bit more of a gray tone and more of a matte finish. And you can also make sure that your house is not looking like it's circa 2002 by making sure that the other things that you're putting in the space feel more updated. So like in this photo, we've got very white, fresh paint color, and then we've got black accents through the windows and light fixture. Metals. So brass has been going strong for quite a few years now. A lot of clients that I have, you know, that are in their 50s and over are often hesitant to do brass because, you know, they think about in the 80s when brass was big. But brass this time around is a little different in that we're doing it I'd say more like an antique brass or antique gold. So it's quite a bit darker and nowhere near as shiny as what was happening in the 80s. But again, the brass is still popular, but I think we're moving towards chrome coming back. So back to, you know, the shiny, cool metal. Now, what you can do if you don't want to, if you're saying, oh my gosh, Kirsten, my whole house is brass and now I have to make it chrome. Well, of course you don't, right? Because these are just trends and we don't have to do whatever exactly the trends are, right? These are just suggestions that you can sprinkle into your home to give things an update. But sometimes the architecture of your home or even, you know, your own personal taste is such that you don't want to participate in that trend, and that's totally okay. For example, I'm working on a home right now that is more of a historic homes. So we're going with the brass details because that feels more historically accurate to the home. But per my second bullet point here of bridging the gap, is a great way to do that is to mix metals in your home. So we can see in this photo here, we've got quite a lot going on. We've got the black trim of the mirror. We've got that antique brass going on in the sconce and the cabinetry hardware. And then the faucet is probably a polished nickel. So you can see how when it's artfully done, we can mix all the metals in our home, right? Not everything has to match. Okay, kitchens. So I personally think that you cannot go wrong with a white kitchen. It's timeless. I don't think it's ever going out of style. That being said, there is more of a push recently to get away from the white kitchen and do more of a cream colored kitchen. So that would be like this photo where we're just going with like soft neutrals. This is a really elegant, elevated look because, you know, it's nothing crazy, but, you know, switching it up a little bit if you want to get away from the white cabinetry. Another trend is the modern shaker. So this is referring to the type of door style. So in this photo, you can see there's trim around the door, and that's called a shaker. Now in this photo, this is a modern shaker. So that trim that's going around the door is much, much thinner. And this is kind of a new, fresh take on a classic, being the shaker door style. So as you can see in this photo, this is a white kitchen, right? But they've kind of updated that by doing the modern shaker, by having a very modern linear pull on the cabinet. And you can see down at the very bottom there that they've done dark floors. So it's all just about, you know, sprinkling in the trends. And then last, I did want to mention that quartz is still going very strong. I'm seeing all my clients still want to do this, wrapping the quartz up onto the backsplash. It's still very, very popular. And then I did want to throw a wild card in here. So just to kind of throw back to what we talked about of the pop of red, this is the actress Kirsten Dunst, and she was featured in Architectural Digest's home tours, and she made quite a splash with her oxblood red kitchen here that she's got, and so there's definitely been kind of talk amongst designers of, oh, is the red kitchen going to come back? So if you're feeling daring, you could definitely go for a red kitchen. Okay, tile. In the way of tile, we're doing large scale tiles. So if you've got the 12 by 12, we're not really doing that so much. We're doing more of the, or even the 12 by 24 is starting to feel a little bit dated. We're going more for the larger scale 24 by 24 or even 24 by 48 and beyond. And this is meant to kind of have a slab look. So we're doing porcelain tile that looks like marble. And so you're getting that beautiful marble effect without the maintenance and without breaking the bank. And then on the flip side, if you're going with a smaller scale tile, then doing something artisanal looking, so handmade, is also really popular. So I'm just gonna pull up that photo. So this is where the tile, it doesn't look perfect. It's got kind of some rippling in it. The edges are not perfectly square. And this gives a really beautiful artisanal look. It really, the rippling in the tile can really reflect light in a beautiful way. And this is one of my favorite things to do as well. Okay, and then To finish off trends, I just kind of wanted to talk about a few trends that have been popular for a few years, but are still going strong. So the fluting details, you can see in this photo, right? It's an architectural detail, but we also see it in cabinetry. It's just something that has been providing a lot of visual interest, and I think it's still going strong. I've seen it done as like a room divider. There's lots of different applications, and it always looks interesting. The next thing that's going strong is patterned floor tiles. So I think when this first came out, I was a little worried that it would feel dated. And while there are some patterns for the pattern tile that are starting to feel a bit dated, I think there's just been so many different iterations of this that there's really something for everyone. And it's still feeling fresh because there are constantly new patterns coming out. So pattern tile is still something that I'm using in my projects. And then the last one would be black accents. So I remember I had a friend about, how long ago was it? Maybe 7 or 8 years ago, who was saying, Kirsten, I'm thinking about doing black windows like on the interior of my home. Is that something I should do, or is it a fad? And at the time, it had just started being popular. And that's the thing, is like, just as designers, we don't have all the answers, right? Sometimes something comes out and it feels really exciting, but we don't know if it's going to stick around. Well, black accents has definitely had that staying power, and if anything, it's gotten more and more popular. So painting out windows and doors as black accents, doing black plumbing fixtures, black light fixtures, all of these things are serving as a really interesting pop of black in your space. And I think it's still going to be around for quite a few more years. Okay, so I hope that kind of gave you some insight into what is hot, what's popular right now in 2024, and gave you some inspiration for whatever you might be working on. Now, with that inspiration, you might be thinking, okay, well, what is it like to work with a designer? So I'm just going to kind of walk you through in my firm what services we provide and what that sort of looks like. So if you were calling me to hire me, it always starts with a phone call where we just get to know each other a little bit, chat about the project. And then I go on site to do a walkthrough where I take pictures. We talk a little bit more in depth about what the client's scope of work is. And then once we have the scope of work nailed down, then I would provide an estimate and we sign the contract. And then once we're ready to go, we start off with concept development. So that means coming up with the overarching look for your space. So that would be inspiration photos, concept boards, to show my client what we would like, what the intention is for the space. And this is really useful because we want to make sure that, especially if it's a large project with multiple rooms, we want to make sure that every choice that we're making is cohesive, that everything is working together to make an overarching look that is harmonious. Okay, so next thing is the interior planning and drawing. So that's your floor plans, that's your elevations, that's your reflected ceiling plans for lighting. These are all the technical drawings that we're doing to determine the scale and the flow of your space, and checking the scale of any fixtures or things that we might be putting into the space. Next, I'd be doing shopping. So that's sourcing for fixtures, finishes, and any furniture, like maybe we were doing a furniture phase after your renovation. So I'm looking for all of your plumbing fixtures, your lighting fixtures. Finishes would be things like flooring, tile, paint color, etc. Another thing that we provide is concepts for custom millwork. So I work closely with a custom millwork company where we provide inspiration photos, and then they would be doing the technical drawings for, say, like your kitchen, for anything that's like built-in cabinetry. So maybe bookshelves flanking your fireplace or cabinetry in a mudroom. This is also covering your vanity designs in a bathroom. And then we kind of go back and forth. We mark up the drawings and until we have the working drawings that can be built from. Next would be project management. So once we've made all of the design selections, then we're moving into demolition and construction in your project. And I typically go on site quite frequently and have on-site meetings with the general contractor. And so we're looking at what's on the docket for today, what are we doing? And we're also looking through documentation, right? To make sure that everything that needs to happen is happening. For example, if it's a large project and, we have, numerous amount of different tiles, we've enumerated that in Project Finder. If this tile goes in this bathroom, and this tile goes in that bathroom, and this light fixture goes in the entryway, and this light fixture goes in the principal bedroom, etc. There's also a lot of problem solving involved because in terms of renovations, there's always something that comes up. So the general contractor and I are often putting our heads together to make sure that whatever has come up, we can find a solution that's going to keep things as close to the original design intent as possible. And then to finish things off, we do some accessorizing and styling. So of course, this can either happen a little bit or a lot, depending on what you've hired me for. So if it's just for a renovation project, then maybe it's the last finishing details, such as, choosing your towel bars and your mirrors and things for a bathroom. But if we've gone a full furniture phase, then this would include all of your soft goods. So your accent pillows and throws and table lamps and little accent tables and other decor and art, whatever you've hired me for. We come in and we make sure that everything is looking beautiful. And I always try to provide my clients with what I call their little TV moments. So they leave the home for the day and we work our magic, and then they get to come home and have that surprise of a fully styled home, which is always really rewarding to see people's faces when they go, oh wow, I never imagined that my space could look like this. So just to recap, when you're working with a designer, I'm helping you pinpoint your style because not everyone knows what they like. And also helping determine what the style should be that's appropriate with the architectural style of your home. I'm guiding you through the design process because, it can be a stressful process. We're making sure that all the decisions that need to be made are being made in a timely fashion before the contractor needs those things. I find often the contractor will be like, oh, we need the tile picked in 2 days. Well, and that can be incredibly stressful, right? So we're making sure we're way ahead of the game there for design choices. We're problem solving with the general contractor, as we just talked about, providing project documentation to make sure everything's organized, and then creating a cohesive look for your home. And finally, define your expectations because, we don't always, as clients, don't always know what they like or what they don't like. Sometimes they have a sense of what they like and don't like, but I'm here to kind of push the boundary a little bit, right? That I'm going to make suggestions that maybe you've never even considered and would think, oh, wow, I never would have thought of that. And isn't that such a cool idea? I definitely want to try that in my home. Okay, so at HvK Interiors, we kind of run the full gamut of project sizes. So a small project would be something like a design consultation where I'm going into someone's home for just an hour and maybe helping them look at paint colors, or we're talking about furniture layout for a tricky space. A medium project would be furniture and decor, or maybe a small reno, so a bathroom, a kitchen, a basement reno. And then we get into the larger projects when it's some combination of the above. So maybe you're doing your kitchen and 2 bathrooms, or maybe you're hiring me for furniture afterwards. And then, of course, we're getting into a very large project if it's you're putting on a home extension or doing a full gut job, or of course, a new build of your home. Okay, so I'm just going to take a drink of water because I've been gabbing away here. So now I would like to just show you some examples of my work. So here's a little nursery that I did. You can see here we've got a floor plan that shows the layout of the furniture. In the middle is sort of like the concept board that I was talking about, where it either shows inspiration photos or is showing some of the selections that we've made and how those pieces are going to look together before we're actually going ahead and purchasing those items. And then on the right-hand side, you can see, cute little reading nook of how that turned out. Nurseries are so fun. I love doing those. This was a larger scale project. So this was actually a commercial project that I worked on in Burlington. And this was an office space for a tech firm. And as you can see in the before photos here, it was very bare bones. So it was just, the concrete floor there. It was a blank slate. Here's some photos during. So we've got, some of our materials here. We've got the carpet, we've got tile, we've got paint color choices, we've got some of our inspiration photos. And then here is kind of in the process of the construction, various things like tile going up, the kitchen getting put together, etc. And then this is what we were left with as our final product, a really beautiful, modern, sleek space to work in. Okay, and then this last one that I want to show you is a project that I'm very proud of. I've been working on it for the last 1.5 years in Ancaster. And this was for a couple who renovated their home top to bottom with me. And then they also hired me on to do the furniture afterwards, which I absolutely love the opportunity to do that because, of course, I'm able to finish off the space really beautifully when we're able to look at art and furniture and decor afterwards. So this is the kitchen. And just like we just talked about, we've got a classic white kitchen, but updated it a little bit with the modern shaker. And then we've got some interesting details, right? We've got the pop of black with a very modern kitchen faucet. We've got the visual interest here with the fluting on the island. Here's the living room. So again, we're keeping it really visually interesting by layering in all these textures. So I thought it was a really interesting choice. I loved this coffee table that is so, it's almost architectural in its form. And then we've got some visual interest here with the grass cloth on the side table. And then for the color palette, I wanted to keep everything like really soft, really calming, but also still interesting. So it's not, we've got greens going on here, we've got oranges, we've got yellows, and that's all pulled from the artwork as well. But even though we've got so much color, it's still calming. It's not overpowering. And then this is the principal bedroom and the principal ensuite. again, with visual interest and bringing in texture, we've wrapped the entire room in a faux grass cloth. So that just adds so much calming texture because it's feeling really cozy. And then again, we kind of repeated this fluting detail here on the vanity. So sometimes it's nice to incorporate repetition, and that's part of making that cohesive look in your home that when we're bringing in little elements of repetition, then your eye is going, oh, I recognize that I saw that earlier in the home. And then that just kind of helps to pull your look together. Okay, so that's everything that I have to show you. Just wanted to say thank you so much for coming and joining me here to talk about all things design. And whether you're taking on a renovation, a new build, or a simple one-room refresh, HvK Interiors is here to help you. So if you are interested in perhaps getting more information about hiring myself as your designer, I'd love to chat.
Wonderful, Kirsten. Thank you so much. Lots of inspiration there, lots of ideas. I'm sure everybody's minds are spinning like mine is right now and like thinking of things I can change in my own home. Even just subtle changes, right? To just make it a little different. For those of you who had a question for Kirsten, you can type it in using the question button at the bottom of the screen. And just a reminder, we are recording this and everyone that registered will receive a copy of the recording. I know a few people had trouble tuning in at the start, so not to worry, you will get a recording or link to a recording and you can revisit it. Some people were asking about the different slides you had up too about resharing. So we recommend using that link to go back and look at the slides where she showed the paint colors or certain trends. So everyone that registered for it will get that link to the recording. So with that said, we have some time for some Q&A. So I will start off with, I'm getting a lot of questions about suggestions you might make for those who are looking to kind of age in place as the future comes. Are there little things people can do around the house to make it more accessible that you would recommend?
Well, of course, I think the main thing is your accessibility of your home in terms of stairs, right? So if you've already got a lot of stairs in your home, then that is something to think about of, is that going to serve you long term? Because the more open plan that you have, the easier that's going to be. But I mean, there are other things that you can retrofit into your home. For example, if you're not ready to move, there are things like a chair that can go that can take you up the stairs so that you don't have to actually walk up the stairs. But in terms of what you can do in your home, I think having accessibility in terms of how close the furniture is placed together. So, you know, if we're thinking about needing accessibility for a walker, things like that, we just want to make sure that you have the clearance to walk around your furniture. That type of thing, I think, would be the most common.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, just I would assume lots of space to move around. So picking out, selecting furniture would play a big role in that, I would imagine. Would you recommend for shower material? Oh, sorry, just lost that question here. Oh, there we go. What would you recommend for shower material that is low maintenance, i.e. for cleaning, not having to replace silicone due to mold, etc.?
Well, porcelain tiles are very versatile and they come in so many different designs and looks. But as I was talking about in the webinar, I think the larger that you go with the tile, then the less maintenance is going to be because then you have less grout lines. So if you go with a really large scale tile, then that's going to be less cleaning for you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Someone is asking, if you paint your interior doors black, would you recommend painting the trim around the door too?
You can. However, that starts being quite a big commitment if you're carrying the black around the door, because then it's like, where do you stop it, right? Because then it's feeding into all of your baseboards. And I mean, if you have a really designated space that you want to try this in that has a clear stop and start for all of your trim work, then I would say go for it, because it's going to be really impactful. It's going to look really cool. But if you're kind of want to tiptoe into this, and then absolutely just have the door be black, and then all of the trim and casing can stay white.
Great, thank you. I'm getting quite a few questions as well about your thoughts on painting kitchen cabinets. So not necessarily a full kitchen reno,
Mhm.
but the thought of painting current kitchen cabinets to make them more modern or on trend.
Mhm. Yeah, I think this is such a budget-friendly way to update your kitchen. Um, For sure. And if you want the paint to last longer, then I would say a great way to do it is to get one of the spray guns. And then you can do that kind of in your backyard, where you're taking it off the hinges, and then spray the doors in your backyard or your garage, like just a well-ventilated area. And then that's going to kind of give you that more professional sheen. But absolutely, painting cabinets and then just update the hardware, and then maybe your faucet, and it's going to make such a difference.
Yeah, that's a great way to update it a little more budget friendly, definitely. Someone is asking, can you mix different wood flooring from one room to the next? They're mentioning their whole house is blonde real wood. Can I put laminate in my bedroom?
I think if it's like you're saying in your bedroom, where it's kind of separated from the rest of the home, you could get away with it. But I would really proceed with caution, because I think the ideal thing is to have the same wood throughout your home. And unfortunately, the more times that you're changing the the finish on the floor, the more I don't want to say your home is going down in value, because I don't think that that's true, but I'm just saying, like, even for like something to be careful for, like resale value, I guess, that when people are walking through the home and they see a bunch of different finishes, then they can go, ooh, people like it to be one uniform look.
Yeah, that's a great tip, especially for those looking to perhaps resell their home. A question here about painting our dark wood in historic home. Plain bright white. Is plain bright white okay, or should it be another color? Can you keep some of the wood in a room, or should it be all or nothing? And I think they're referring to wainscoting, doors, stairwell, baseboards, etc. They're all gorgeous but very dark.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I think if you want to take, for as an example, my photo where we were talking about white kitchens, and instead doing a cream colored kitchen, like, obviously you can't go wrong with white, right? So if you want to paint out all of your woodwork in white, of course, that's gonna brighten everything up and it's gonna look beautiful. You can't go wrong. If you're feeling like, I don't want to go that light, then look for a nice neutral color, right? And it'll still lighten it up, but maybe not be as starkly white. But I think this question is kind of the same as what we were talking about with um, painting the black door, and do I do the trim black? It's the same sort of thing, that I think you can keep the wood, say like the wood wainscoting in one area and paint out in another area. Just be mindful of your stops and starts.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you. Someone is wondering about window coverings. They currently have old Venetian blinds in the bedroom and looking at pull down blinds. What are your thoughts, or what is on trend with window coverings right now?
Hmm. So I think you can do a very sleek roller shade, and those come in a bunch of different materials and opacities and things like that. So it can really suit whatever your needs are. Like if you need it to have blackout component, then you can do that. Or if you need just for like light filtering, then we have that as well. And you can get it in like a linen look, I think is really beautiful. If you're doing like a white linen roller shade, it's really understated. And then that's kind of for your light control. And then you can layer on like draperies and a drapery rod to kind of frame your window. And I mean, I typically like to just do white linen because I think it goes with everything. But if you want something that's more of a statement, then you can go with finding like an interesting pattern for your drapes.
Great, thank you. Someone is asking, who is responsible for acquiring the building permits, homeowner, designer, or general contractor when working with a designer?
So usually it's the general contractor who is going to do that. It can vary. For example, if you're doing something that is expensive enough that requires a building permit, oftentimes you're needing an architect or an engineer to stamp drawings. So a lot of times they will provide those services as well, saying, you know, we're doing the technical drawings anyway, we can submit that to the city for you. So I would say usually it's the architect, engineer, or general contractor that's doing that.
Okay, great. Thank you. We'll do a couple more questions here. So someone's asking, is it still on trend to have a white kitchen with a different color on the island? If so, what colors are being used on the island currently?
Mm-hmm. So I think you can't go wrong with a white kitchen. It's classic. It's never going to go out of style. Um, and then for sure, I think doing something different on the island kind of breaks up all that white. So we've seen in the past doing the navy blue island has been really popular. That's kind of starting to feel a little bit dated. I think if you really like the blue look, there are different blues. Like if you want to look online for inspiration, if you're saying like blue island, then that will show you some other examples of blue that are feeling like a little bit fresher. I would say just maybe just something lighter or a little bit more of a greeny blue would make it feel a little more updated. And I think a dark gray is still really nice, or even like a dark wood stain.
Okay, great. Is carpeting considered passé? It seems everyone is tearing out carpeting and replacing it with laminate or wood flooring of some sort.
Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't say that carpet is like on trend, but I think it's one of those things where it can be just personal preference that if you like carpet, say like in a bedroom because it feels cozier, I think there's lots of beautiful Berber carpets, right, where it's not a high pile, it's a lower pile, and do something that is in a um, you know, very neutral tones. Like we don't want it to look dated by being like a, you know, a very dark beige or anything like that. Like keep it light. Then I think you can still achieve something that looks fresh and new.
Great, thank you. So we'll do two more questions here. The first one is, what trend are there in light fixtures? This person specifically referencing kitchen table, hall, living room. I know in the past there's been some different trends in light fixtures. Is there anything that's either timeless or on trend now?
I think with lighting, you can go one of two ways. You can do something that's going to be very cohesive with the style of architecture of your home. So, for example, if you have a very historic home and you want to kind of stay true to that, you can source out lighting fixtures that have that historical flair to them. Or you can kind of do the flip side, where which is kind of more what I like to do. Whereas if it's a more historic home, then I want to sprinkle in more modern light fixtures because I feel like that tension is what adds a lot of visual interest. I think that there's so many styles out there. I wouldn't say there isn't anything in particular that is in style, but I would lean more towards modern lighting.
Okay, that's great. And given the essence of time, our last question, and I'm seeming to get a lot of them, so I'm going to try to group it all together, but the basis of most of them is, what are some really good, I guess, value added or improvements for any resale potential?
I think it's always going to be the kitchen and the bathrooms, right? Those are the spaces that people look at when they're purchasing a home, and because that's where the most work is involved to make it up to date, right? So that's the thing. If you're taking care of that work for them, then that's going to make your property value go up. So those are definitely the target areas that you want to focus on.
I assume that could be something small as well, like even just like you were saying, the handle pulls, or a new faucet, or some new lighting, just something to kind of freshen it up and bring it kind of more in style or up to date.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you don't want to get into a full reno of a kitchen, there's definitely the smaller cosmetic things that we talked about that really do make a big difference.
That's great. Thank you so much for all of your information and wisdom and ideas today. There's a million more questions that if we had another hour, I'm sure
I
we
wish I could
get through them
answer
all.
more.
But in the essence of time, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to speak to our group this afternoon. And thank you to everyone tuning in. A reminder, you will get an email with the link to the recording, as well as a link to a survey. If you could take 2 minutes to fill out that survey, we really appreciate the feedback. And thank you so much again, Kirsten, and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. Glad to have you. Enjoy your afternoon, everyone.